and welcome back to Darvanalee Design Studio. For those that don't know, my name's Nicole Reed and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon beside it, and that way you won't miss out on any future posts. So what is this video about? This video is about the final assembly of our Block of the Month series. For those that have only just joined us, I will link up the playlist down below so you can find all 12 blocks there, as well as this assembly video. So I have been playing around with the layout for the Block of the Month, and I have come up with two layouts. I have chosen to do layout 2, but instead of working in the diagonal, I am going to show you in this video how I add triangles to each of the block on the corners, turn them on point, and then put them into the quilt. And at the end of the video, so if you hang out till the end, you will see a full view of the quilt hanging on my long arm machine, and I'm getting ready to quilt it. I'm going to quilt it over the Christmas break while I don't have any other customers' quilts in the machine, and once I'm finished I will put it up over on our blog and also in our Facebook group, but I'm not going to do a video on it because I'm still not sure how I'm going to quilt it. So let's get started. Alright, so we're at the assembly of the quilt now, and what I'm going to do with mine is I'm going to actually turn all my blocks onto point. So I need to have some squares cut, and then subsequently I will cross cut them, and so I end up with some triangles, and you'll need 4 triangles for each block. And so I'm going to show you how I actually do this. It's a quick and easy way to do it. There's no math involved, and basically it's the most easiest way that you can do it. So as I said, I am actually going to turn my quilt blocks onto point, and I will be following a layout that I've put together in EQ8, and I have uploaded that to our Facebook group, and I'll also have it over on our blog as well. Alrighty, so you're going to need a few things. You're going to need a rotary cutter, you're going to need some pins, you're going to need a square quilt ruler, and also a long quilt ruler. I generally use a 6.5 inch by 24 inch, and it's too big to fit on camera, but you'll need one of those as well. Okay, and you'll need some pins and some matching thread, and we're just about ready to get started on putting our blocks on point. So basically what you need to do is have your squares, work out what size your squares are going to be. Mine end up having to be 9.5, and I cut them a little bit bigger so I can trim them down a bit later. So when I measured it, actually the square I only had to cut was a 9.25, but I've added an extra quarter on to give me that little bit of leeway, because we are working with triangles, and as you know, sometimes they can distort. So basically what I did was cut out my squares, and then I cross cut them. So basically what I'm going to do is show you the no math way of doing it. This is a quick and easy way to do it, and it won't take you any time at all to put your quilt together. Okay, so what you do is you take your block and you take your quilt ruler, and on one edge you put your ruler on point like this. So you can see there that it's got a little triangle coming off it, and basically all you do, and hopefully I can get this on camera close enough for you. I'll just turn that around a bit so it's a bit easier to see. All I do is I basically just start pushing the ruler up to line up. So you can see there that the corner of my quilt block, okay, ends up being, and I'm using the line on my mat there to keep my ruler straight. So you can see there that those points are ending up on my 9-inch mark on the ruler, because it starts from 1 here and goes down to that way, and the same again on this side. So I've got my quilt block lined up underneath, and I've just pushed my ruler up to show me where the point is on the quilt block, and they're both sitting on that 9-inch mark. Okay, so but now I've got to add in my 1/4 inch, and this makes it super easy because it's on the whole number. So I know that I've got to have 9.25. That's what my square should be. But because I'm going to be working with triangles, and the nature of triangles is sometimes they shift or distort, I'm going to cover my bases, and I'm going to add an extra 1/4 inch. So I'm going to cut my blocks at 9.5 inch, and you can do this for any size square or quilt block to turn it on point. So say you were just making this here, this section here, you would measure this part and then it would tell you how big a square you needed to cut for that one. So this one, for our outside, to turn it into a square, as I said, we just find the center and we keep our ruler straight, we find our points, and voila, we know that we've got to cut a 9 1/4, but because I like to play it safe, I'm cutting it an extra 1/4 of an inch, so 9 1/2. So go ahead and measure all your blocks and then cut out the size strips that you need, and then cross cut them into squares, and then we'll be ready to go. So I've done that off camera. So you can see here, these are my squares. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to turn them on point. So I've got my longer ruler here, so I'm going to turn them on point, and then I'm going to put my ruler corner to corner, and I'm just going to cross cut that, and that gives me my triangles. So I'm ready to go, and I'll just grab my quilt block. So now I need to find the center of my block. So what I do with that is I just fold it in half and just finger press that to make a little crease. So now I know that that's the center of my block. And when I was prepping some of my triangles off camera, you can see there that I've ironed a crease into it to find the center of that. So now I know that all I have to do is line up those 2 crease marks. And you can see here that my triangle is hanging off the edge of the block, and that's perfect. That's exactly what you want it to do, because this will allow for, when you add the other triangles on, this will give you your seam allowance. So I pop a pin into the center, lining up my raw edges, making sure that everything's looking straight, and I've got some fabric hanging off the edge. And because I'm working with larger triangles too, I tend to pin a lot more, probably some would say a little bit of excessively, but this will just stop them from moving or warping on me. And I always put one down here near the end. Okay, so that's ready to go, and all I'm going to do is sew a 1/4 inch seam along here, and I'm going to repeat that on the opposite side. So to save me some time, again, I find the center of my block, and I always do them opposite. Okay, so we'll pop those pins in there, and now we can head over to the sewing machine and we can sew our 1/4 inch seam allowance on those 2 sides. So it's just straight down where you've just pinned. Okay, so you can see there I've put them on, and basically I've pressed my seams open, so I'm right to add my next triangle on. So again, I just find the center of my square or my block, give it a crease. I do the same thing with my triangle, and then I line them up, and again you can see that that is overhanging again, and this is going to give us our seam allowance. And if you haven't worked with triangles before and you feel more comfortable cutting your blocks a little bit bigger, go for it, because we can just trim down that excess a little bit later on once the block is all sewn together. And I repeat on the other side again, same thing, just fold it in half, grab our triangle, fold it in half as well, align our crease marks, make sure all your raw edges are aligning, and then we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam again, and then our block will be finished. Okay, so I've got all the blocks all set on point, so I've added all my triangles onto them and everything like that. So now what I'm going to do is assemble them. So I've got a layout here, but it's got triangles put into here to make it go like that. We don't have to do that because we've put everything on point and turned them into squares. So now what I'm going to do is just sew those squares together whether it be in this layout or I put it some other way, like move the blocks around and see what looks right once it's together. But you can see here that that's what it's going to look like. So we don't have to cut these squares either. That we've got in here, because that's what these triangles will end up making, like an hourglass block in the center there, so you won't have to worry about that. This was just to give me an idea and also you an idea of how it was going to go together. So I'm going to head off and sew all that together. So that's it for the 2018 block of the month series. So I really do hope that you've enjoyed it and learnt something along the way. Keep an eye out in the next couple of weeks, because we're starting 2019's block of the month. It'll have its own playlist, so you'll be able to find all the blocks there, and I'll also have an assembly. And the next one will actually be foundation paper piecing. Well, thank you very much for joining me for this mystery quilt along for 2018. As I said in the video, I do have another one starting in January, and the first block goes up on the 8th or the 9th. So make sure that you hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon, and that way you'll get a notification of when that video goes up. I still have a couple more videos going up for 2018, but we are already filming our tutorials and our block of the month for 2019. We've got plenty of things in store for you, but I'll get into that in another video. So thank you very much for joining me for this 12th month series, and I hope to see you again in 2019. Have a great day, everybody, and I'll see you all again real soon. Bye for now.